Alright guys, so in this video we're going to solder the Kailh BOX Royal switches, reassemble the RK61, and add a few mods while we're at it. First thing we're going to do here is add a 3mm layer of neoprene to the inside of the case. This will significantly dampen the higher frequencies that the keyboard produces, leaving the resulting sound more deep and throcky. There are several sound dampening materials that you can use for this, but for a simple budget build, neoprene works the best as it's inexpensive and easy to find. The mod is pretty straightforward. You measure the bottom of the case against the neoprene, mark the parts that need to be cut out, and cut it down to size. Make sure that you account for the holes inside the case, typically used for screws, and also keep in mind that this layer will be stretched over the surface of the case, as you will see. It's worth mentioning here that this mod only works if you have enough clearance between the bottom of the case and the PCB. To apply the neoprene, simply peel off a little bit of the paper from it and make sure you pack down the material into the grooves of the board. Once the exposed part of the neoprene has been packed into place, peel off a bit more and repeat until the entirety of the neoprene is packed into place. Another step I like to include before assembling the board is to clean the metal backplate with some rubbing alcohol. This will dissolve any grease or lubricant that may have been stuck to it, which attracts dust. After doing so, I like to wipe down the backplate with a cloth to ensure that it's clean. Next, we're going to modify the stabilizers. To do so, we're going to disassemble them by twisting the plastic parts off the metal bar. Then we're going to clip the feet off the plastic sliders as shown. For the plastic-on-plastic friction, we're going to use silicone lubricant with Teflon by DuPont. I spray some inside a small container and set it aside to be used later. Then, to make the job easier, I apply a piece of clear tape to my cutting board. I then squeeze enough dielectric grease onto it so when I finish, I can just peel off the tape and throw it out in the garbage with no mess. After placing the modified stem into the plastic part, you can dip the metal bar into the dielectric grease and twist it back into the plastic part. Ensure that you spread the grease sufficiently into the plastic stem, as this will reduce friction. Repeat the same step for the other side of the stabilizer and twist it back into place. Next, dip the brush into the Teflon lubricant and apply the lubricant onto every part of the stem that will have contact with any other part of the plastic. This will also quiet down the stabs and reduce friction and scratchiness. Once done, clip the stabilizer back into the backplate and repeat the same procedure for all the other stabs. After all the stabs have been placed into the backplate, it's time to put new switches into place. Before putting the PCB onto the backplate, we're going to do a double band-aid mod. To do so, we're going to need fabric band-aids, and we need to cut the fabric portions into small rectangles that will be applied to the PCB. This will dampen the sound of the stabilizers hitting the PCB. As I mentioned, this will be a double band-aid mod, meaning I will apply two pieces of fabric on top of each other onto the PCB, further reducing the sound of the stabilizers hitting the PCB. Once all the band-aid pieces are in place, apply some dielectric grease onto the fabric and spread it evenly using the brush. Then place the PCB onto the backplate and ensure that the leads of the switches poke through as intended. all the leads are through, we need to twist the 3 metal pieces that the RK61 backplate has onto the PCB. This further helps secure it into place. Next, it's time to solder. You can use a soldering pen at 300 degrees Celsius, and personally I prefer a 40-60 solder. The method that I use involves soldering the corner switches first, then moving to the rest of the switches next. Make sure you avoid breathing in the fumes and use a proper breathing technique to blow the fumes away from you. Once all the switches are soldered into place, it's time to put the backplate and the PCB into the case. Remember to first connect the PCB to the battery that's inside the case. After the backplate is in, ensure the neoprene doesn't interfere with the PCB in any way. Then, flip the board over and screw in the 4 screws until they are sufficiently tight. Make sure you don't overdo it, as this can damage the screws and the board itself. Finally, it's time to put the keycaps on the board. I do this in reverse order of the disassembly, with the spacebar first, followed by the mods, and finally the alphanumeric keys.